Welcome back to Bible Quizzes. Today's questions are going to be all about David, so let's get started. 1. Who among David's wives was Saul's daughter? Ahinoam, Abigail, Michal, or Bathsheba? Michal, 1 Samuel 18:27. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full count to the king, that he might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him Michal his daughter as a wife. 2. Who among these was not David's son? Ishbosheth, Amnon, Absalom, or Adonijah? Ishbosheth, 2 Samuel 3:2-5. Sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon, Absalom the son of Maacah, Adonijah the sixth, Ithream by David's wife Eglah. Ishbosheth was not his son. 3. Which among his sons did David wish he would have died for? Solomon, Amnon, Adonijah, or Absalom? Absalom, 2 Samuel 18:33. Then the king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said thus, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. O Absalom, my son, my son. 4. How long did David rule over Judah and Hebron? 5 years, 7 years, 30 years, or 23 years? "7 years, 2 Samuel 5:5. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. 5. In which place were David's wives taken captive? Hebron, Bethlehem, Ziklag, or Jerusalem? Ziklag, 1 Samuel 30:1-3. Now it happened, when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south, and Ziklag attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women. 6. What was David's attitude when Shimei was throwing stones at him? Indifference, vengeful, anger, or humility? Humility, 2 Samuel 16:11. And David said to Abishai and all his servants, See how my son who came from my own body seeks my life. How much more now may this Benjamite? Let him alone, and let him curse, for so the Lord has ordered him. 7. Which psalm did David write in repentance after sinning with Bathsheba? Psalm 1, Psalm 23, Psalm 50, or Psalm 51? Psalm 51. David wrote Psalm 51 while repenting after sinning with Bathsheba. Psalm 51:1. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your loving kindness, according to the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. 8. Where was David standing when he spied on naked Bathsheba? The temple, city gate, palace roof, or watchtower? Palace roof, 2 Samuel 11:2. Then it happened one evening that David arose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful to behold. 9. How long did David fast for the sick baby he had with Bathsheba? 4 days, 7 days, 3 days, or 8 days? "7 days, 2 Samuel 12:16-18. David therefore pleaded with God for the child, and David fasted and went and lay all night on the ground. Then on the 7th day it came to pass that the child died. 10. Which priest did David often consult with? Samuel, Ahithophel, Eleazar, or Abiathar? Abiathar, 1 Samuel 23:9-10. When David knew that Saul plotted evil against him, he said to Abiathar the priest, Bring the ephod here. Then David said, O Lord God of Israel, your servant has certainly heard that Saul seeks to come to Keilah. 11. Who was Ahithophel to David? His general, his advisor, his son, or his priest? His advisor. 2 Samuel 15:12. Then Absalom sent for Ahithophel the Gilonite, David's counselor, from his city from Gilo, while he offered sacrifices. And the conspiracy grew strong, for the people with Absalom continually increased in number. 12. What was the relationship between David and Jonathan? Enemies, brothers, cousins, or friends? Friends. 1 Samuel 18:1. Now when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. 13. Who is the father of David? Jesse, Hoses, Boaz, or Joab? Jesse. 1 Samuel 17:17. Then Jesse said to his son David, Take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp. 14. Who among these was not David's brother? Eliab, Eleazar, Abinadab, or Shema? Eleazar. 1 Samuel 16:6-9. He looked at Eliab and said, Surely the Lord's anointed is before him. Jesse made Abinadab pass before Samuel, and he said, Neither has the Lord chosen this one. Then Jesse made Shema pass by. 15. How many brothers did David have? 5, 7, 6, or 11? Seven. 1 Samuel 16:10-11. Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, and Samuel said to Jesse, The Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, Are all the young men here? Then he said, There remains yet the youngest. 16. How old was David when he started to rule? 17 years, 20 years, 40 years, or 30 years? "30 years. 2 Samuel 5:4. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. 17. Who was the captain of David's army? Abishai, Zadok, Abner, or Joab? Joab. 2 Samuel 8:16. Joab the son of Zeruiah was over the army. Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was recorder. 18. Whose robe did David cut with a sword? Saul's. 1 Samuel 24:4. Then the men of David said, This is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it seems good. And David arose and secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. 19. How did the Bible describe the appearance of David in his youth? Handsome and ruddy, tall and strong, weak and frail, or short and dark? Handsome and ruddy. 1 Samuel 16:12. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is the one. 20. Whom did David say died like a fool? Jonathan, Abner, Saul, or Uriah? Abner. 2 Samuel 3:33. And the king sang a lament over Abner and said, Should Abner die as a fool dies? 21. Whose flock and servants did David protect in the wilderness? Saul, Eli, Samuel, or Nabal? Nabal. This is what David said to Nabal. 1 Samuel 25:7. Now I have heard that you have shearers. Your shepherds were with us, and we did not hurt them, nor was there anything missing from them all the while. 22. How did David's brothers respond to him when he visited them in battle? They rebuked him, they praised him, they ignored him, or they encouraged him. They rebuked him. 1 Samuel 17:28, Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, "Why did you come down here, and with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart." 23. What was David's position by birth in the family? Firstborn, youngest, middle child, or secondborn? Youngest. 1 Samuel 16:11. And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all the young men here?" Then he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and there he is, keeping the sheep." 24. What part of Goliath did David hit with a stone? His forehead, his arm, his eyes, or his chest? His forehead. 1 Samuel 17:49. Then David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone, and he slung it and struck the Philistine in his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. 25. How many times did Saul throw a spear at David? Once, twice, 3 times, or 4 times? Twice. 1 Samuel 18:11. And Saul cast the spear, for he said, "I will pin David to the wall," but David escaped his presence twice. 26. Who perceived himself as a dead dog in David's presence? Joab, Abner, Uriah, or Mephibosheth? Mephibosheth. 2 Samuel 9:7-8. So David said to him, Mephibosheth, "Do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan your father's sake." Then he bowed himself and said, "What is your servant, that you should look upon such a dead dog as I?" 27. Whom did Absalom instruct to kill Amnon, David's son? His servants, his soldiers, his advisors, or his brothers? His servants. 2 Samuel 13:28. Now Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, "Watch now, when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, 'Strike Amnon,' then kill him. Do not be afraid. Have I not commanded you?" 28. David took his parents to which king for asylum? King Moab, King Ammon, King Edom, or King Saul? King Moab. 1 Samuel 22:3-4. Then David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and mother come here with you, till I know what God will do for me." So he brought them before the king of Moab. 29. Whom did David get into a covenant with? Jonathan. 1 Samuel 18:3. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. 30. Who among Saul's sons reigned for 2 years before David took over? Abinadab, Ishbosheth, Malchishua, or Jonathan? Ishbosheth. 2 Samuel 2:10. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. 31. Which foreign crown did David put on his head? Moabites, Philistines, Ammonites, or Egyptian? Ammonites. 2 Samuel 12:30. Then he took their king's crown, the crown of the Ammonites, from his head. Its weight was a talent of gold with precious stones, and it was set on David's head. Also, he brought out the spoil of the city in great abundance. 32. Who was David fighting when he almost killed in battle? The Philistines, the Ammonites, the Amalekites, or the Moabites? Philistines. 2 Samuel 21:16-17. Then Ishbi-Benob, who was one of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose bronze spear was 300 shekels, thought he could kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and struck the Philistine. 33. Who among David's wives was a Jezreelite? Bathsheba, Abigail, Ahinoam, or Michal? Ahinoam. 1 Samuel 25:43, David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and so both of them were his wives. 34. What did David use to build his house? Cedar, tent, stone, or mud bricks? Cedar. 2 Samuel 5:11, Then Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters and masons, and they built David a house. 35. Who stopped David from building a house for God? Solomon, Saul, Joab, or Nathan? Nathan. 2 Samuel 7:5, But it happened that night that the word of the Lord came to Nathan, saying, Go and tell my servant David, Thus says the Lord, Would you build a house for me to dwell in? 36. How many people died in a plague because of David's illegal census? 70,000, 100,000, 30,000, or 3,000? $70,000. 2 Samuel 24:15. So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel from the morning till the appointed time. From Dan to Beersheba, 70,000 men of the people died. 37. Who moved David to number the Israelites? Joab, Satan, Abner, or Saul? Satan. 1 Chronicles 21:1. Now Satan stood up against Israel and moved David to number Israel. 38. Who anointed David to be king over Judah in Hebron? Samuel, Zadok, men of Judah, or Jonathan? Men of Judah. 2 Samuel 2:4. Then the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. 39. Who among David's sons declared himself king when David was sick in bed? Solomon, Amnon, Solomon, or Adonijah? Adonijah. 1 Kings 1:5. Then Adonijah the son of Haggith exalted himself, saying, I'll be king, and he prepared for himself chariots and horsemen, and 50 men to run before him. 40. Who served David when he was sick in his old age? Bathsheba, Solomon, Abishag, or Abigail? Abishag. 1 Kings 1:1-3. Now King David was old, advanced in years, and they put covers on him, but he could not get warm. So they sought for a lovely young woman throughout all the territory of Israel and found Abishag the Shunammite. 41. Who mocked David for dancing before the Lord? Bathsheba, Michal, Abigail, or Saul? Michal. 2 Samuel 6:16. Now as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and whirling before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. 42. Who among his daughters did Saul promise to David as wife but gave her to another man? Tamar, Merab, Michal, or Abigail? Merab. 1 Samuel 18:19. But it happened at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given to Edreel the Meholathite as a wife. 43. How many foreskins did David give Saul as dowry for Michal? 100, 200, 1,000, or 50? (200). 1 Samuel 18:27. David arose and went, and his men, and killed 200 men of the Philistines, and David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full count to the king, that he might become the king's son-in-law. 44. How many wives did David take when he fled from Saul? 1, 3, 2, or 4? (2). 1 Samuel 25:43. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and so both of them were his wives. 45. Whom did David call an uncircumcised Philistine? Goliath. 1 Samuel 17:26. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine Goliath? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies? 46. Which group of people did David live with while hiding from Saul? Philistines, Edomites, Moabites, or Amalekites? Philistines. 1 Samuel 27:1-2. And David said in his heart, Now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines. 47. Which wild animal did David hold by the beard, then hit it? Lion, wild dog, fox, or wild goat? Lion. 1 Samuel 17:34-35. But David said to Saul, Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb, I went out after it and struck it. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck and killed it. 48. Who among David's sons ordered the killing of Adonijah? Absalom, Amnon, Solomon, or Nathan? Solomon. 1 Kings 2:23-25. Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, saying, May God do so to me, and more also, if Adonijah has not spoken this word against his own life. Now therefore, as the Lord lives, Adonijah shall be put to death today. 49. Who snitched on David and told Saul that David had taken Goliath's sword from the priests? Abner, Jonathan, Michal, or Doeg? Doeg. 1 Samuel 22:9-10. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse going to Nob, to Ahimelech, and he inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath. 50. Whose field did David buy to offer burnt sacrifices to stop the plague? Ephron's, Boaz's, Naboth's, or Araunah's? Araunah's. 2 Samuel 24:24-25. Then the king said to Araunah, No, but I will surely buy it from you for a price. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver, and David built there an altar to the Lord. 51. Whom did David tell Solomon to take revenge on? Adonijah, Joab, Abiathar, or Ahithophel? Joab. 1 Kings 2:5-6. Moreover, ye know also what Joab and what he did to the commanders of the armies of Israel, to Abner and Amasa, whom he killed. Do according to your wisdom, and do not let his gray hair go down to the grave in peace. 52. What was the nationality of Uriah, the man whose wife David took? Moabite, Philistine, Hittite, or Canaanite? Hittite. 2 Samuel 11:3. So David sent and inquired about the woman, and someone said, Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? 53. Who among David's sons raped his sister? Amnon, Solomon, Absalom, or Adonijah? Amnon. 2 Samuel 13:20. And Absalom her brother said to her, Has Amnon your brother been with you? But now hold your peace, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this thing to heart. So Tamar remained desolate in her brother Absalom's house. 54. Who was the son born to David at Bathsheba? Solomon, 2 Samuel 12:24. Then David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and went into her and lay with her. So she bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. Now the Lord loved him. 55. How many stones did David pick when he went to fight Goliath? 1, 3, 5, or 4? Five. 1 Samuel 17:40. Then he took a staff in his hand, and he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag, and a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. 56. Before whom did David refer to himself as a dead dog? Saul, Achish, Jonathan, or Goliath? Saul, 1 Samuel 24:14. After whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom do you pursue? A dead dog? A flea? So it was, when David had finished speaking these words to Saul, that Saul said, Is this your voice, my son David? 57. How many people did the women sing David had slain? 100,000, 1,000, 10,000, or 100? $10,000. 1 Samuel 18:7. So the women sang as they danced and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. 58. Which animal did David kill while defending his flock? Wolf, leopard, bear, or fox? Bear. 1 Samuel 17:34-35. But David said to Saul, Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, and when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck and killed it. 59. Which city did David save, yet they could have handed him over to Saul? Hebron, Bethlehem, Keilah, or Ziklag? Keilah. 1 Samuel 23:12. And the Lord said, He will come down. Then David said, Will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? And the Lord said, They will deliver you. 60. Who among David's sons is described as handsome? Solomon, Amnon, Nathan, or Absalom? Absalom. 2 Samuel 14:25. Now in all Israel there was no one who was praised as much as Absalom for his good looks. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head there was no blemish in him. 61. Who among David's wives was the mother of Amnon? Michal, Ahinoam, Abigail, or Bathsheba? Ahinoam. 2 Samuel 3:2. Sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam the Jezreelitess. 62. What excuse did Michal give Saul when she let David escape through the window? David was ill, David had left, David was busy, or David was asleep. David was ill. 1 Samuel 19:12-14. So Michal let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. And Michal took an image and laid it in the bed and covered it with clothes. So when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, He is sick. 63. What excuse did Jonathan give for David's absence at the dinner table? He was ill, he was on a journey, he had a family feast, or he was with his sheep. He had a family feast. 1 Samuel 20:28-29. So Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked permission of me to go to Bethlehem. And he said, Please let me go, for our family has a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. 64. How many arrows did Jonathan shoot to warn David that Saul wanted to kill him? 3, 1, 4, or 2? Three. 1 Samuel 20:20-22. Then I'll shoot 3 arrows to the side as though I shot at a target, and there I will send a lad saying, Go find the arrows. But if I say thus to a young man, Look, the arrows are beyond you, go your way. 65. Which cave did David hide in when he fled from Saul? Carmel, Adullam, En-gedi, or Machpelah? Adullam, 1 Samuel 22, 1-2. David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. 66. Which city did David take from the Jebusites? Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Jericho, or Mizpah? Jerusalem, 2 Samuel 5, 6-7. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, who spoke to David, saying, You shall not come in here, but the blind and the lame will repel you. 67. How many men broke through the Philistine garrison to bring David drinking water? 4, 3, 12, or 30? 3. 2 Samuel 23, 15-16. And David said with longing, Oh, that someone would give me a drink of the water from the well of Bethlehem. So the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of the Philistines, drew water from the well of Bethlehem. 68. What did David do with the water his mighty men brought him to drink? He drank it, gave it to his men, he didn't touch it, or poured it out to the Lord. He poured it out to the Lord. 2 Samuel 23:17. Nevertheless, he would not drink it, but poured it out to the Lord, and he said, Far be it from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Is this not the blood of the men who went in jeopardy of their lives? Therefore, he would not drink it. 69. What type of men joined David in the cave of Adullam? Wealthy men, mighty men, exiled men, or men in debt? Men in debt, 1 Samuel 22:2. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became captain over them. 70. Where was David buried? Jerusalem, Hebron, Gibeon, or Ramah? Jerusalem, 1 Kings 2:10. So David rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, Jerusalem. 71. Who among these was David's daughter? Abishag, Tamar, Keziah, or Dinah? Tamar, 2 Samuel 13:1-2. After this, Absalom the son of David had a lovely sister whose name was Tamar, and Amnon the son of David loved her. Amnon was so distressed over his sister Tamar that he became sick, for she was a virgin. 72. Who was David mourning in the Song of the Bow? Bathsheba's son, Abner, Absalom, or Saul and Jonathan? Saul and Jonathan, 2 Samuel 1:17-19. Then David lamented with his lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son, and he told them to teach the children of Judah the Song of the Bow. Indeed, it is written in the book of Jasher. 73. Which king did David call my father? Abimelech, Saul, Achish, or Hiram? Saul. David said this to Saul, 1 Samuel 24:10-11. I will not stretch out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, see the corner of your robe in my hand. 74. What did the people want to do to David in Ziklag due to sorrow? Stone him, imprison him, crown him, or follow him to battle? Stone him. 1 Samuel 36. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. 75. Which king was David's friend that provided timber for building the temple? Tyndall, Hiram, Bashan, or Agag? Hiram. 1 Chronicles 14:1. Now Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers to David and cedar trees with masons and carpenters to build him a house. 76. Who among David's wives was a Carmelitess? Bathsheba, Ahinoam, Abigail, or Michal? Abigail, 1 Samuel 25, 40-42. When the servants of David had come to Abigail at Carmel, they spoke to her, saying, David sent us to you to ask you to become his wife. So Abigail rose in haste and rode on a donkey and followed the messengers. 77. What was David's occupation before he became king? Soldier, shepherd, carpenter, or farmer? Shepherd, 1 Samuel 17:34. But David said to Saul, Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock. 78. How many concubines did David make to live like widows? 12, 10, 5, or 6? 10. 2 Samuel 23. Then David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house. He did not go into them, so they were shut up to the day of their death, living in widowhood. 79. How many men did David have when he fled from Saul? 200, 30, 400, or 60? 400. 1 Samuel 22:2. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. 80. Who anointed David as king the first time? Nathan, Samuel, Abner, or Saul? Samuel, 1 Samuel 16:13. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. That's all our questions today, so remember, let us know how you did down below and share this with your friends and family, and we'll see you all in the next one.